Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show. Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Liann Zhang, a former skincare content creator who has since graduated from the University of Toronto with a degree in psychology and criminology. We're here today to talk about her debut thriller, Julie Chan is Dead, published by Bloomsbury, which you can get a copy of right now in the description. We will discuss some mild spoilers, so I recommend you grab a copy now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking Liann about her own experience as an influencer for a brief period of time, and how turning her career to criminology helped craft the world that we find in this novel. Liann, thank you for joining Date with a Debut.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so nice to see you all the way across the world in beautiful Toronto. And kind of we'll start off by saying that for those who listen to this podcast who aren't familiar with the world of influencers or look at the word influencers and go, what the heck is that? Because, you know, people are out there. You, for a brief period, were one yourself. You posted about skincare products because you were dealing with acne in school, and then you suddenly picked up 20,000 followers. Just before we kind of dive into this book, because I feel like that context is kind of a little bit handy, tell us about that world from Liann's experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a novelty for me because obviously I was a teenager. I think I was 16 at the time when I first started, and I had zero expectations entering the space. It was literally just me reviewing product that I thought worked well, and engaging in the social media realm with the other creators. But a few things later, I get 500 followers and I get my first PR product with only 500 followers. And I was like, oh, this is a free thing that's arrived to my doorstep. And sooner or later, I got more and more stuff, more and more free things, and started to meet other people and connect to other creators. And, I get the behind the scenes experience of it all and getting to connect with the people. Most of them are really nice, but there's always a few where you're surprised at who they present themselves as and who they actually are behind the scenes. And, some of that feeling was definitely put into this novel. So without saying too much spoilers, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it just some of those experiences. I also kind of find it funny that, like, obviously you had that in school and then you kind of pivoted to like graduate from the University of Toronto with like a degree in psychology and criminology. I mean, bit of a pivot. So well, I imagine like obviously you kind of have mentioned in interviews and stuff that you've done in the past that like that actual psychology of influences has been something that you really noticed or picked up on a bit. I obviously don't want to do a psychoanalysis into your career to get into this book, but I just want to say I think I can see the influences in your interests kind of in it, given where this book goes.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely take it to another level. I'd say I take what I've noticed and observed and really just throw them to the extreme. Like there's no, they're sinking in whatever chaos I'm putting them in. Yeah.
You did this book with, I think it's a trio of books in Canada, which is being distributed by Bloomsbury here in Australia. Often I know that, publishers are so good at picking up on what a book needs and what an author needs, and they find the right editors and the right people who have experience and subject matter in that space. Obviously, influencers, it's a bit more of a unique challenge because it can be a bit of a closed gate in some instances, but there are also maybe other people who might be very open with some of the issues that they have in the influencer space. Out of curiosity, what was the assembly of this book like? I'm just curious.
In terms of like with the publisher?
With the publisher, with the publisher, with giving them a sense of, okay, this is what the world is like, and kind of actually using it to build it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I feel like a lot of the assembly happened before even the publisher came in. Just like me writing the book, putting all of my own experiences, but also the experiences that I've kind of absorbed from being online for like a long, long time and just knowing every single social media scandal you can know and just throwing it into the book. I think thankfully the fact that I had my background lended some type of credibility to what I was saying, and also just the fact that I think it's interesting because a lot of the editors, you know, they're so in their books that they're not really aware of how crazy the social media angle goes, but I think they're ready to accept these types of ideas. And I know some people who have like some agents that had approached me were like, I've worked with influencers in the past, you know, I've worked in that space, and they can attest to like parts of it that are very real. So I think it was a lot of trust in that way, where they saw what I was trying to say and they believed in it, and they just worked with me to get it in like the perfect, you know, way to then give out to readers, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, it definitely does. And I think it's their journey in terms of assembling it would have been as interesting as yours. There's a great quote from, I think it's Margaret Atwood, who everyone, when she was talking about, mentioned a few times on the show, where she's talking about when she wrote The Handmaid's Tale, and everyone was like, you certainly have an evil imagination, you made all this stuff up. And she just responds, well, I didn't make it up. And that definitely applies here with this particular book where it goes.
But yes, I generalize.
Without further ado, let's talk about this book. For our folks on the video channel, I'm holding up a copy of it. This is a really nice cover, by the way. The book is called, I don't think you mentioned it. Well, we mentioned it in the intro, is Julie Chan is Dead. We're now at the stage of the podcast where I ask for a 1-minute pitch. I've hopped into the lift with you. We're going up to whatever floor we are on. What is Julie Chan is Dead about?
Julie Chan is Dead is a thriller that follows a young woman who steals her influencer twin's identity after she mysteriously dies, only to discover that her twin's picture-perfect life is more sinister than it appears online. That's kind of like the quick pitch. I don't know if I should expand even further, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then it just goes wild from there.
No spoilers. We'll keep it as simple as possible because, Ding, we've got to the level because while we do dive into spoilers a little bit on this podcast, with this one, I feel like I kind of have to be compelled to be as broad and as general as I can with it because, obviously, being on a podcast, we have to be succinct about it. But when I was reading this book, I realized very, very quickly, this might be my interpretation, but correct me on it, what this book is about. Because obviously there's a lot in here. There is relationships, there is jealousy, there is self-acceptance. But for me, it felt like this was a book about power and about privilege, told through a 21st century lens of the influencer. And that can be viewed in several ways. Like from previous books that I've read, from my approach with privileges, I know that people can be born with privilege and money. They have no control of the fact that they were born with that, and some may choose to use that for good. What the issue is the misuse of privilege that you have, and this book is definitely about that.
Yeah. Definitely. It's definitely rooted in a lot of like class and race elements. I think it was kind of necessary for a book about social media because it's at once very timely, but also sometimes like stuck in this time. Like there's a question of would this even be relevant in like 5 years or let alone 5 months, you know, because social media moves at such a fast pace. But I think that was one of the reasons it had to be grounded in these elements, because otherwise, you know, you'd kind of lose track of that. But by doing that, it keeps it very like eternal in a way, because these issues with privilege are never going to leave the system. At least I don't think so in my lifespan. And I think social media is also just a way where a lot of people feel like it's an equitable space because there's such a low barrier of entry in a way, but really it isn't, you know? Just like in North America or like in the Western world, it feels like everybody has a phone, but that's not reality at all. Like there's so much that goes into it. And social media in a way also just exemplifies all the different classes. You can see it in like a magnified way. You like go on TikTok, one scroll is like someone working hard to pay their bills, and then the next it's like a billionaire in a private jet and they're doing like a day in their life where they're shopping at Hermes or something, you know. And it's like it makes this disparity very acute, but it also puts on this perception of like this wealth that they have is so attainable, but really it isn't. So there's just so much to explore there, and social media definitely reflects reality in some ways.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, like the point that you mentioned there, because the cycle is so quick in social media. There's trends and everything that everyone tries to jump on, and that definitely is in this book. But I think there's a real timeless element because of that. It's because of I feel like there's a real timeless element to it, because the big difference, I think, we're now living in a world where a lot of people now, multiple generations, have grown up with the online space, and so that experience, even though the trends are moving at a million miles an hour, everyone gets the experience element of it. So I think that there is that kind of, which you kind of really capture in the story, and you're absolutely right in terms of that whole space and competitiveness, because we're so saturated these days, and a lot of platforms are slowly making that transition to pay to play, and that you've basically got to throw as much money as you can in to be involved. And it's really who has the most money that determines the profile and the influence more than anything. It definitely, there is a privilege and a class element that is now very prominent in social media spaces.
Definitely. And I think there's also a factor of like enviability. Like a lot of people hope to attain that, and they do sometimes see that progression of like the regular everyday girl that starts out just like them, and then they see them grow into an influencer, and it becomes almost like this attainable aspect to them that everybody kind of wants. Like I don't know a single influencer that has become successful and didn't quit their jobs, you know. Like that's just how it is. And so much, especially for female influencers, a lot is based on how they look or the lifestyle that they kind of project into the world. And a lot of that again has to do with, you know, race and class. And it's just, you know, social media does not work in a vacuum. It's interrelated to everything else in the world. So yeah.
And it's so interesting that those are the drivers. That's kind of those stuff that we're trying to smash. We're trying to get better at it. We're trying to like break down a lot of those ideas about how you look and being the determining factor of success and patriarchal structures, effectively. And yet, in some way, shape, or form, they still drive a lot of stuff and how people feel. And I think this is a great point to pivot to these characters, these sisters. And I feel like obviously Julie's the best place to start. When we find her, she's working in a supermarket, she's struggling, and it's not helped by the fact that she's the twin sister of Chloe, who has this glamorous lifestyle, has this space. And of course she's kind of in the shadow of her sister, and there's a whole family backstory there. And of course she goes to her apartment after this kind of, I guess to say, like kind of a cryptic message or a message from Chloe, and finds her dead. And the immediate thing is, instead of, you know, going to the police or doing something like that, she decides to take her twin sister's identity. Told me so much about this flawed character and her ambitions in an instant. Like, what a move to make. I mean, of course, as a reader, you're going, what the heck? But as the writer in me just went, oh, that's loaded. Oh, that's bold. Oh, whoa, jeez. Tell me about Julie and also Chloe in this dynamic.
Yeah, to give her some credit, she did try to call the police first.
Yeah, she did. I'm sorry. She did do that. That is true. She did do that.
Yeah, but also it didn't help that the police did kind of accidentally enable her by, mistaking their faces and whatever. So kind of added fuel to her fire. But the twin aspect is very interesting to me because I like to explore this, like, it's rooted in privilege, as we mentioned. So there is like some exploration of nature versus nurture. You're right. When you first meet Julie, she's really down on her luck. She's working at a grocery store. She's forced to see her sister online, living this lifestyle that she thinks is, in a way possible only because she was adopted by a very affluent family. And I think a lot of it is true because as you see throughout the book, like after she has access to some of the wealth and some of the support, she does kind of change in her internal belief system of like what she could do. But in terms of Julie, that choice at the beginning of the book, I think is just, I'm always about characters that make the wrong decision, but like in a fun way, and sometimes, you see characters make the wrong decision in other books. It's always like, oh, they have a family to feed or it's for a noble purpose. But for Julie, it was entirely selfish and it was...
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. In her mind, she's really the number one victim of the situation. She kind of has like a victim complex and believes that she deserves everything. Like the world owes her in some type of way because this alternative version of herself got so much and she got so little. But I think she's like just in a way the perfect not scapegoat, but like replacement. Sorry if you can hear the sirens.
It's very loud. That's right.
It's passing right past me, so I can literally see it outside my window.
Yeah, no, you're all good. You're all good.
Yeah, so she's just like kind of this perfect projection of everyone else that's not on social media. I feel like part of us is always like, I could do that. Like I could be the influencer. Like how hard could it possibly be? So in some type of way it's that, but it's an exaggerated version. And just doing it as a twin made an element of surprise for the reader because she's really thrown into the world without any preparation because Chloe had already built up everything for her. So it was also like a great plot device in that way too. Yeah.
It's a different sort of privilege. Like it's good that you mentioned that, but like her space that she feels like there's that jealousy, there's an uncomfortable element to it. And that she feels like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can earn this. I can. There is like a different side to her that really, really comes out, and you touch on it again. We've touched on it a few times, but that element of always trying to be successful, always, when you're an influencer, that element of you always want to be seen as successful. You always want to be growing. These influencers that she kind of then gets a world into off the back of pretending to be her sister. They're all at that level, but there is also that competitiveness to them. Yes, they're all in the same space. Yes, they've all achieved that success, but they always want to be seen as growing, getting better, more success, bigger house, and the entitlement that comes with being in that headspace and changes your view of the world. And it really starts to come out the more and more we hang out with these people. There's a lot of characters in here, so it's a bit hard to dive into. Tell me about a few of these influencer characters that Julie interacts with, because they're just wow. People have described this book sometimes as unhinged, but from what I know, like there were some key moments and interactions that I won't spoil where I was like, Liann ain't making that up. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think for the a chronically online person, they might recognize some references like Easter eggs, but legally they are not based on real people. They're more just archetypes. They're just more archetypes of specific niches. Like, you have your athletic girl, your gym girly, who's doing sponsorships with gym brands. And then you have your mommy vlogger and your makeup girl and the one that's like just really hot and people just love her because she's really hot. So in a lot of ways, there's those archetypes there, and I wanted to like demonstrate each one in their own way. But the main kind of person is Bella Marie. She's seen as like this it girl. She's like everybody's dream girl, and also everybody wants to be her type of girl. And she's kind of the embodiment of privilege in many ways. And in a lot of ways, Julie does at once envy her, but also like kind of aspire to be her. And she really is the epitome of like the influencer oligarch, I would say, at the top of the world. So she finally gets like inducted into this friend group, and she's very compelled to become one of them. And she, is willing to conform in different ways, and not just on social media, but in her real life. So I hope that
there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of performance like involved in it, and the performance is off camera with these group of people as it is on camera as well. I feel like this is a good time to talk about it, because obviously this subject matter can turn incredibly dark incredibly quickly, and it indeed does. But what is really good about it is that this book also has a very good jet black sense of humor, which I think in stories like this is incredibly critical. You need to have those moments where you can get the reader to laugh and get the reader to enjoy the moments, when you contrast it with quite thriller, and at some points even a bit horror-oriented subject matter. What's the trick of balancing that? This is just me more asking from a technical aspect, because it's important to have that balancing act. You need to make sure that there are those lights and shades in this story to ensure it doesn't get too intense, because again, this is a world people are familiar with, and it would strike close to the bone for many.
Yeah, I think tonally it came very naturally to me, because when you're exploring the internet, in a way, I wanted this book to kind of be like if you're taking a bite of the internet. You're getting like all of like the crazy bits, the horrific bits, the conspiracy bits, but also the fun and the loving bits. You're getting a little bit of everything. And especially for like a character like Julie, who makes questionable choices, like stealing her sister's identity for bad reasons, there has to be an element where you're not like absolutely hating her. And I think a lot of that does come into the fact that she's kind of like has a witty, sardonic voice that in some ways I think mirrors what a lot of people might think, but maybe on a little exaggerated, dark, funny level. And I think it was very necessary for her to feel like that, because otherwise it would be a different read of a book. It would be a lot darker and maybe less fun when you're seeing this like crazy girl taking over a twin's life. So it was very necessary for it to be a little bit jokey, because otherwise it would be, I don't want to say a less enjoyable novel, but like so different. And also me personally, I just like it when someone can like have a little laugh at it, because it's kind of a silly book in some ways, Yeah, weird silly book.
Yeah, I must admit, you do get behind her with that voice, because there was a part of me, even though like Julie was doing like some really questionable stuff, in a weird way, I kind of respected the hustle.
Yeah.
I kind of respected the audacity and the determination to succeed, even though the method was questionable in all ways, shapes, and forms. But yeah, it's so true. The ending of this book is something. There is an island and an influencer retreat, and I will leave it at that. I will say nothing else. This ending, I will not spoil it, because this is a wild ride where this book goes. And I like to kind of leave authors and ask that kind of question, like, you did this experience, you kind of there was a lot to kind of get to the ending of this story. And I'm curious, now that you've sat with this book, you wrote it, it's now out in the world, what did it teach you?
I feel like in my heart of hearts, I want to say that I am someone that critically engages with the internet after, especially my own experience, like being in that seat and like knowing how superficial things can get and how you can't really trust what you see, because we expect authenticity, but in reality, nothing about online is authentic, So in that way, I would hope that readers come out of it more critical about what they're consuming and about who they're seeing, and recognizing that even though this person might feel like your best friend, they're really a complete stranger that's putting on a performance a lot of the times. At the same time, after this book came out, am I on social media even more? Yes, unfortunately, a girl's got to promote her book, so I'm on there all the time. So I am more critical, but also on the back end, it's a slippery slope back into the dredges of social media, I'll say. So I really need to turn back and look inside again and really reflect on what the book means. Yeah.
It's so paradoxical, isn't it? It can like you're doing a book which is an interesting discourse and analyst social media, and how am I going to promote it on social media?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so funny. And also that like, I mean, I think it's also because off the back of that, it's yes, you have to do that, but I think what's good about this is that it's important when you're on that social media space to be your authentic self, and recognize that there are going to be some people who are extremely performative, and how they present, and recognize that it is, it's a heightened sense of reality, and the algorithm and what it's trying to present to you is saying, this is what we're trying to get stuff to keep you on the platform as much as possible. This is why you are seeing the content that you are seeing. If you are aware of that, then you can have a pretty healthy relationship with social media. But it's a slippery slope.
It's so easy to get sucked in. Like, even if you're aware of that, sometimes it can feel different. It's kind of I like to say, like, I have a toxic relationship with the internet because I can fully recognize some things, but I still can't help being drawn back in. You know what I mean? So yeah, but the overlords working our social media and the internet are not interested in what's best for humanity. I think they just want to keep us on scrolling. So they're gonna keep doing whatever they're doing, and we have to go outside and look at the sun and touch some grass sometimes.
Yeah, true. Not a bad thing. Out of curiosity, like, what's next? Is there another book? Is there something that you're working on? Is there another world we'll soon dive into?
Yes, I did sell this book in a 2-book deal, so it is in the works. It is kind of a thriller mystery. No surprise horror elements this time. But it's also about about a girl, a true crime podcaster who does make some questionable decisions in order to gain some relevancy. But it's a different type of story, I will say, without spoiling too much, because it's still, it might change. It's not even close to being finished, but it's in the works, yeah.
Ooh, it still sounds exciting, though. I mean, true crime podcasts are going gangbusters right now. So, of course, diving into them, I reckon, doing a book about them and the consequences of how you choose to perceive and view things, that sounds amazing. Oh, another one. Yes, another one. I'm sorry. How exciting. Well, all the best. I wish you all the best for that book. Before we finish up and wrap up for good, I like to finish this podcast with effectively a rapid fire part of the podcast, where I basically fling a bunch of questions at you, and then you give me the best answer that comes to your head. Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Be afraid. No, I'm kidding. The first part of the rapid fire is, what is your favorite book that you have read in the last 12 months?
12 months?
Can be. I'm pretty flexible.
I'm literally looking on my bookshelf right now. I almost said my own book, but I will not say I recently read Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. I read it as an arc. It's so good. It takes place during COVID, and someone pushes her sister under a plane and gets crushed, or not a plane, a train. And then she starts seeing ghosts, and then there's like a serial killer thing, Chinese spirits. I'm pitching it awfully, but it's a great book. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. That sounds thrilling. Love it. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite debut novel that you've ever read?
My favorite debut? Oh my God, what are the debuts? I'm gonna promote a friend's book. It's called Restaurant Kid by Rachel Fan. It's about growing up as a restaurant kid, where her parents are completely dedicated to the restaurant, and it explores like the immigrant experience in Canada, and it's a very great book. I loved it. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds cool. It sounds. I had a book, Half Truth, which kind of touches on a very similar thing, but except it's an exploration of going back to Morocco, which is really, really cool. Is there a okay? So this is more just a niche question for me because it's a type of subject matter that I really really like off the back of this book. Is there a favorite like loaded novel about like that's a satire of 21st century content or 21st century challenges that are kind of unique that you can recommend? For me, off the top of my head, like I had enjoyed Namer Brown's The Shot, which is such a great deep dive into kind of those romantic comedy shows like Married at First Sight, or there's a whole bunch that where finding love in the online space, like finding love and the connotations around all that and the consequences that you have when you have people putting their personal lives on television so explicitly. Is there a book or a piece of content that you really like off the back of that?
I mean, when you said satire, I immediately thought of Yellowface. I absolutely love that book. I
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
everybody and their mother has read it already, though. On a similar vein, like, what was Kylie Reid's book called? Like,
hang on, I gotta Google it.
It was about like, it was very topical. It was about a black nanny who was taking care of a white child, and then people thought that the nanny was like doing something wrong, and then tried to kick her out of a superstore or a grocery store or something, and like report her to the police, and then got caught.
Such a fun age.
Yes, I also like that one.
Age.
It was a cool exploration. Yes. It also had a little bit of like online element to it because it was all surrounding like a video that goes viral.
Oh no! Come and Get It. Come and Get It is the more recent one. Is that the?
No, I was thinking of the other one. So it was a while ago, but it still remains very topical. Yeah.
I can't believe that's her debut as well. Like, talk about.
Oh my god! Yeah, you're right. I could have said that too, but I told you it didn't feel like one. So yeah.
Talk about hitting the ground running. I often see those authors who then like clean it off the start. I'm like, how are you that good? Like, just hit the ground running with like a Booker Prize insane piece of work. A
casual Sunday for her, for real.
Is there an example? Obviously, you're online a lot. Is there an example of a positive influencer or an influencer that actually uses their platform and that headspace in a way that you go, that's actually really positive and really informative and good in the online space?
Positive. I feel like my first instinct is to go to either like Good Mythical Morning, who I've been watching since I was a child, because I feel like they're very unproblematic, and they just produce content, and they do a lot of charity work. But I will say my personal favorite creator right now is this girl called Mina Lay. She does fascinating, almost like internet documentary like type of videos where she like explores fashion and what it means in like society. She did this great like 30-40 minute video about how like holding a book has become like the new it girl item. Like you see models strutting around with books nowadays, and that's like kind of their accessory and like the hot girlification of reading. She does lots of books like or videos like that, and they're all very informative. They're well researched. She cites all of her research. She's so smart. And in that way, I think she's contributing to the greater good because delivering content I love and I'm learning from her. Yeah.
That's great. That's like so interesting to examine. Like I had no idea that people just carry books around as accessories.
It's like the covers are always out. They're always like annotated, and they'll carry nothing else, like no purse, no phone, like just so you know it's like a paparazzi moment, and it's a thing that's been happening. Yeah.
I hope they read it. Like, do they read it?
Well, I think that was the controversy. I don't know if you watched the Kendall Jenner Architecture Digest video where she toured her house, and there was just a bench with like books stacked on top, and it kind of was like, that's a prop. Like, do you actually read? Like, maybe she does. I don't want to say she doesn't read those, but
yeah,
there is an element where it's very much like performative reading. You know what I mean? So yeah. Fascinating video.
You get it. That's interesting. Wow, God. You get into a lift, and your absolute hero is in there. Who is it?
Like in all of life?
All of life. Can be alive, can be dead. First name that comes to your head.
Oh my God. Why did I literally think Robert Irwin? But he's not even dead. I think I was thinking of his dad. Steve Irwin?
Steve. I mean, look, Robert.
him recently.
I mean, Robert's been doing the thirst trap photos lately. Which I was like, you're not supposed to grow up.
What?
You're not supposed to grow up.
I see that.
That's not right. I mean, Steve's awesome. I mean, yeah. I'm biased, but Steve is pretty awesome. So, well, now that you have Steve / Robert Irwin in the lift with you, you've got time for one question. What are you gonna ask?
I'm gonna ask him a question.
Yeah, ask him. Yeah.
I don't know, like. I was gonna say, what should we do about stingrays? Like, I don't know, but that's not the right. Stingrays have done nothing wrong. Like, it was just a self-defense mechanism, you know. But of course, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But yeah, yeah.
That's a great question. Last question: are you happy?
Yeah, I am. I love it. Life is great right now, I think. I'm peaking, really. It's a slippery slope downhill from here. Kidding.
Liann is happy. That's all I need to know, which is awesome. And you know what else is awesome? This book, Julie Chan is Dead. So for everyone listening, go and get a copy of it. Julie Chan is Dead is out right now. It's out in the world. It's published by Bloomsbury Australia, if you're in Australia. And I cannot stress this enough. You don't want this one spoiled. Liann, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut, and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.